You've probably heard some tech facts over the years, like more RAM makes your PC faster, or incognito keeps you anonymous. But how many of them are actually true? Spoiler alert, most aren't. Today we're busting the top 10 tech myths that even tech-savvy people still believe. And some of them might be holding you back or costing you money. Adding more RAM is often the go-to suggestion for speeding up a slow computer, and it's not wrong sometimes. But if you're not maxing out the RAM you already have, adding more does nothing. Open Task Manager or Activity Monitor. If you're sitting at 50% memory usage, adding more won't change performance at all. In fact, your hard drive or CPU is probably the real bottleneck. SSD upgrades and cleaning startup programs often have more impact. Swiping apps closed feels productive, but it's often the opposite. On Android and iOS, background apps are paused, not running. Reopening them actually takes more power. Worse, apps like Spotify or Maps that are meant to run in the background, you're breaking their function. Your phone's operating system is smart enough to prioritize resources. Let it do its job. 108 megapixels sounds impressive, but it's a marketing trick. A 108 megapixel sensor with a cheap lens and poor software? Worse than a 12 megapixel sensor with a big sensor and smart processing, like on iPhones or Pixels. That's why some high-end phones stick to fewer megapixels but better color accuracy, low light processing, and HDR. This one has stuck around for decades, but today, it's just not true. While Macs are less targeted by malware than Windows, they're not immune. There's plenty of Mac-specific adware, browser hijackers, and even remote access tools. Plus, phishing doesn't care what OS you use. Mac users fall for bad links too. Incognito hides your history from your device, not from your ISP, your boss, or the websites you visit. It's great for hiding your tracks from people using your computer, not from the internet. You don't need to let your phone die before charging it. That was true for old nickel batteries, not modern lithium-ion ones. In fact, letting your battery drop to 0% regularly can reduce its lifespan. Keep it between 20 to 80% if you want long-term health. A 12-core CPU sounds powerful, and it is, but not everything can use all those cores. Most games and apps rely on single-core performance, so a faster 6-core CPU might outperform a slower 12-core one in real use. Antivirus is a good safety net, but not your first line of defense. Most modern threats come from phishing links, fake logins, and scams. Antivirus can't help if you click the wrong thing. The best protection is being aware. Don't reuse passwords, enable two-factor authentication, and learn to spot fake sites. 4K resolution is only noticeable if you're close to a big screen. On a 6-inch phone, you literally can't see the difference from 1080p. Meanwhile, color accuracy, contrast ratio, and HDR make a bigger impact. That's why a good 1080p OLED can look better than a cheap 4K LCD. Your phone doesn't just keep charging after 100%. It stops. It uses smart charging to trickle power and protect the battery. Unless your phone overheats or your charger is faulty, you're safe charging overnight. So go ahead and sleep. Your battery won't suffer. Now, you might be wondering, if these tech myths are so easy to disprove, why do they keep coming back? Why does incognito keeps you anonymous or Macs can't get viruses survive even in 2025? The truth is, tech myths persist not because they're true, but because they're simple, comforting, or repeated enough to feel real. 1. Simplicity over accuracy. People love easy answers. Saying more megapixels means better photos is simple, easy to grasp. The real answer? That involves sensor size, dynamic range, lens quality, and post-processing algorithms. Too complicated. So the brain defaults to the catchy, oversimplified version. 2. Marketing fuels myths. Tech companies love these myths because they sell. More cores, 8K screens, AI cameras. They sound powerful, and they sell. And while those features can be useful, sometimes they're marketed as bigger upgrades than they really are. When a myth becomes common belief, It's easier for companies to lean into it, focusing on spec labels rather than meaningful improvements. 3. Myths get handed down. A lot of tech advice comes from older generations, or from when that tech was new. Like back in 2005, telling someone to close apps to save battery made sense. But today's OS has better memory management. Still, that advice gets passed down like tradition. It's the tech equivalent of don't swim after eating. 4. Confirmation bias. If you think something is true, you're more likely to notice examples that support it. Got a new laptop with more RAM and it feels faster? You credit the RAM. But maybe it also had a better CPU, faster SSD, or a cleaner OS. That's confirmation bias, and it keeps myths alive. 5. Social media echo chambers. YouTube Shorts, TikToks, Reddit. Once a myth catches fire, it spreads fast. And if someone with authority or lots of followers says it, it gets repeated without question. Sometimes even tech reviewers oversimplify for clicks. That's not always malicious, but it blurs the line between fact and fiction. 6. Deceptive truths are the hardest to erase. Many myths start with a grain of truth. For example, more RAM helps performance can be true, but only if you're running out of it. That's what makes these myths slippery. They're not 100% wrong, just misleading when applied blindly. 7. People hate change. If you've believed something for 10 years, it's hard to let go, even if the evidence is right in front of you. Admitting a myth is false means admitting you were wrong. That feels bad, so most people avoid it. Instead, they double down, repeating the myth to others and keeping it alive. 8. Critical thinking is optional, not taught. Let's be honest, we use tech every day, but most people don't understand how it works. We're not taught how smartphones, networks, or even basic privacy tools function. So when someone says something confidently, we believe them. That's why myths thrive in an information-rich but understanding-poor environment. So, what can you do? First, stay curious. Don't just repeat something because it sounds right. Look it up, test it, ask why it works. Second, don't shame people who believe myths. Explain, show examples, and be open to learning yourself. We're all wrong sometimes, but we can choose to stay wrong or update. And finally, share the truth. Videos like this one exist to challenge common knowledge and replace it with real knowledge. So if you've learned something today, share it. Spread facts, not fiction. That's how we move tech culture forward. So, how many of these did you believe? Let me know in the comments. And if you want a part 2, hit that like button and subscribe. And remember, just because it's common knowledge doesn't mean it's true.